Isn't it funny how kids communicate? It's so raw and honest and completely different from how we as adults communicate. And that's exactly what Brunella and Nancy talk about on this week's episode of Hot Button.
Hello, and welcome to Hot Button. This week we're going to be talking about talking or communicating, especially nowadays. In today's world, we have many different ways of communicating: landlines, cell phones, email, texting, and social media. It's a little difficult to keep up with it all.
My favorite way of communicating is actually through texting or email because I can get right to the point. And I don't favor the phone at all. What do you prefer?
Well, I like to speak to my son on WeChat. He lives in China, and WeChat is an app from China. It's similar to Skype. You can type or you can talk direct. You can be on video or not, depends. The one thing about WeChat, I find it doesn't cut out as much as Skype does.
Yes, I know it does do that, but I still love Skype, especially now that my parents use it as well. Having a video call with them, it's a great way to stay closer, and this way they can check up on me.
Well, that's true. I personally like using email. It started because I have a difficult time spelling, and when I'm using the computer, it lets me know if I'm spelling a word incorrectly, and will even suggest a proper spelling. Although not always. Sometimes it's a little confused with what the word is I'm trying to convey, but I usually have it figured out. Does anybody write letters anymore?
Letters? Probably not. I think people still use cards. I send out cards sometimes, especially to my mom because she doesn't do email. So, on special occasions, I send her a card. But I mean, really, who doesn't have emails nowadays? Even my dad has emails, even though it took me 2 years to teach him how to use it.
Well, it can be harder when you get a little bit older. With my Facebook friends, I no longer send any of them birthday cards. I just like to go on to their timeline and say, happy birthday, and then I can check mine. And I love seeing that, like, oh, you had 16 happy birthdays. Okay, I'm exaggerating. The only people that I do send cards to will be the people that don't use technology. Usually that's people a little bit like my age or a little bit older.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned Facebook, and it's so true in these times where we have so many ways of communicating. I find that actually we communicate less. For example, I don't even call my sisters anymore because I think I already know everything that's going on through their Facebook posts. But it's true, there is also some people that don't have any technology. I have friends that are not on Facebook, and they're cut out of everything. They don't know when parties are happening. They don't know what's going on with their friends.
I have the same thing, especially with some of my older brothers and sisters. So they have to be called directly if something's happening. Actually, one of my brothers, I think it's my oldest brother, he doesn't even have an answering machine on his phone. At least he didn't the last time I saw him.
Well, there is something to be said about older technology. For example, I love landlines and especially cord phones. I get lots of headaches if I use cell phones too often or if I use portable phones. So landlines and cord phones are just great for me. And they're great in case of an electromagnetic pulse.
Haven't thought about that one. One of the things I personally prefer not having to speak directly to somebody. So texting and emailing definitely works for me. What about you?
I really like to talk to people in person. There is so many nuance that we just don't get to see when we're texting or calling. The tone of voice and the posture that they have. I do like emails though, so I could live without a phone, but I could not do it without internet.
No, I totally agree with that. Now, just remembering that the first time I saw a computer, I was in my 30s, and it took up a whole room and had to be controlled by the temperature had to be maintained at a certain level. Now, technology is getting easier and easier. We have a cell phone in our pocket, and at one time, cell phones were as big as walkie-talkies. At least that's the way they look to me. With our cell phones now, wow, we can do so much. Not only call somebody or text somebody, we can take pictures, get directions, find a nice restaurant, and even do banking. I love that one. I wonder what it'd be like in the future, in the next 20 years.
Well, I bet that you can say sister and a holographic call in 3D of your sister will appear right there and then. So.
That's wonderful. And we can now communicate with people who don't speak our language. My daughter-in-law has a translator. Now she's Chinese and works for an American company. And even though she speaks the language, there's certain words that, they're a little bit difficult for her to understand. With a translator, it works perfect. That was one thing we saw on Star Trek. Now it's like it's a real thing. Next thing, I'm hoping it will be a teleporter. Beam me up, Scotty.
But I like that translator idea. I wish they made one from male to female translation. Great. Well, how do you prefer to communicate? Hopefully through Facebook or Twitter so that you can let us know. And see you next time on Hot Button.